everyone. My name is Joel McLeod, and welcome to the 905er. We're very thankful to have back to the podcast longtime friend and our faithful eyes in North Halton, Laura Steiner, back to the podcast. Thank you, Laura, for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we're kind of hashing out like what we're going to talk about on the podcast just before we hit record, and I'm going to throw it open to you to lead us off, because you're the nitty gritty, in the streets up in the wilds of Milton. What's been going on? Why don't you give us a lowdown on what you've been focusing on?
Well, what I've been focusing on lately is all the carjackings that have happened around Milton and in North Halton. There was police and and a couple of community leaders. A couple of local councillors got together and got a forum about a week ago now, and it was pretty well attended, and they were talking all about the increase in carjackings. And I don't know it's a GT. It's not just a Milton or North Halton. It's not just a Peel problem. It's not just a Halton problem. It's everywhere around the GTA. In researching the story, I found in I think it was Mississauga alone, over 900 cars had been stolen, or I think it was in Peel region, over 900 cars had been stolen in the first week of January alone. And
sorry, did you say first week?
Yeah, in the first week.
Oh my, holy cow! That's incredible.
Let me double check right now. Yeah, but it's pretty nuts. So, yeah, it's pretty nuts when you're digging down to it. And I found out that in Milton, over 2022, 233 cars have been stolen.
Well, I mean, that's kind of those anecdotal things that we hear all the time. Oh, there's another carjacking, at Yorkdale Mall or Square One or whatnot. You think, oh, it's just crazy. But when we put the numbers down to it, that's not just kids fooling around to have, to have a, doing it for kicks. That's almost like an organized methodology, an organized crime syndicate geared towards the theft of cars.
It's actually, that's what Halton Police has formed a car theft task force looking into it, and that's some of what they're finding. They recovered they've recovered a few vehicles, I think somewhere in Burlington a month and a half or so ago, and they were, I think, on their way en route overseas. And it's hard to keep track because there's been a couple in the last and a couple of pretty high profile stuff happened in the last week. The first one was around right before the forum on car theft. The forum was on March 4th. They'd made the arrests on March 2nd. And this was just an officer up in North Halton that was doing a street check on a plate and pulled this guy over, arrested him, and found that there were others using a house in Milton as an Airbnb. And eventually they caught up with suspects in Mississauga at a gas station and arrested them. And one of them is an 18-year-old wanted for murder in Quebec.
So when you say an Airbnb, you mean like somebody paid for an Airbnb to get these people to come in from out of region or out of Halton to stay there, and basically from this Airbnb, it would be like their headquarters, and they'd operate a car theft ring out of this house. Is that basically what I'm hearing?
That sounds like it's the case. Yes. I did ask after the forum. I did ask about it. Their police were unwilling to speak about it too much because it's still under investigation.
What gets me though is that, like, this isn't a situation that's only for Halton, because we know there's cases in Peel, in Vaughan, like York PD is also hearing similar situations, and we definitely know in Toronto. So it's clear, like, this crime, if it's one or multiple gangs, organized crime outfits, it's clear that they're doing this. They're operating across regional borders. Have you heard of there any collaboration between, like, Peel PD, Halton PD, York PD on a strategy, or are we still everyone for themselves?
I'm not hearing anything concrete, but I do think there is something like Halton. My impression is, I'm trying to be careful what I say. My impression is that Halton Police is very willing to work with other area police forces and trying to get it all sorted. The other problem is how these are being done, and they're calling them reprogramming thefts, which basically means the thieves are working in teams, more or less, and they're basically plug into a port, and somebody else is off scene, and they're reprogramming the key fobs.
Right. So your key tag.
Yeah.
Is it, there are people who might be like, what are you key fob? Are you talking about, like, the key tag, your keychain that you get from the car dealer, that you press the button and it unlocks your car, or in some cases is what you need to start the car, like the signal. They're basically hijacking that signal and cloning it to get the car in your driveway.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it only takes, like they said, 45 seconds or so. So it's very quick. And
it's what floors me is, because the other thing that when we were talking about crime prevention, there was an announcement today by the federal government that they're going to fund $4 million in Halton for safer communities and to go to at kids, at youth. And I'm not going to knock that. I'm not going to. Will it help? I don't know. I find it's one of these feel good stories. What strikes me is that this has not been going on. This is not an overnight thing, right? This has clearly been going on for a while. Yet I don't hear from the province or from the feds pressure to form a coordinated task force, or coordinated, like, to tell police departments, you need to work together, or do you want to hand it over to the OPP? Because this, or the RCMP, to call the RCMP, and because this is, I know from what I've heard, is that cars are winding up in the port of Montreal, or the port of Halifax, to be shipped overseas to be resold. So clearly, like, I think there is a federal jurisdiction here that you could call the RCMP in to actually conduct an investigation into an organized crime syndicate in this part of the country. I just find that the feds coming in and saying, "Oh, we're going to give $4 million for at-risk youth." Yeah, that's all lovely and cozy, but it
is.
But this is serious. Like, this is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's completely serious. And what Halton Police actually were talking about was, this isn't just a carjacking. This is more of a as the example of the guys in the Airbnb. This is an example. This is more of a gateway crime than anything. Like, it's just
gateway to what?
Well, it's like you catch the guy. It's more like what are the cars used for, kind of a thing. It's shipping different drugs, shipping.
I see.
That sort of thing, and so that and the other thing they talked about was Canada Border Services Agency
Mhm.
They're not some of these cars are apparently ending up on the container ships within a day of being
Well, Montreal's only 5 hours away, so I'm not surprised.
being stolen. So, and some of these people have very lengthy records. This isn't their first. They're not first time offenders by this point. So,
Well,
um,
I mean, it's clear that this is if they're winding up in Montreal or in Halifax being put on shipping containers. I mean, this is clearly outside the realm or possibly the expertise of Peel or Halton PD or York PD. To them, I mean, they wouldn't know how to. They wouldn't know who to approach in Montreal to get the lowdown on who's shipping cars to wherever. Again, of course, like where are the feds? Like, where's the RCMP on this? This is clearly like an RCMP. At the very least, the OPP should be involved here.
mhm.
I'm just spitballing here. I don't know for a fact, but it's just
Yeah.
my 2 cents. My 2 cents here.
Well, one of the things that was mentioned is Bill C-75, which I had to look it up to find out what it was, but
Hmm.
it was a piece of legislation that gave judges a lot of leeway with the more violent criminals. And that's sort of another piece of it, because chiefs of police, I know Chief Tanner back last fall when there was the Shaquille Ashraf shooting at MK Tire, they've been shouting about bail reform ever since. So there's probably something on that end that should be examined a little more closely as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. It's one of these things like I don't buy this isn't solvable. I mean, it's clearly that the organized crime elements in Peel are expanding into. I mean, if you're going to Milton, like Milton doesn't strike me as a huge booming target of a hotbed of organized crime, right? Like it's not. Like I don't picture the Sopranos when I think of Milton, but I mean, I guess you as the old saying goes, you go where the business is. Um,
But it's also a fairly affluent community.
True, true.
There's a lot of Audis, there's a lot of Mercedes, there's a lot of the higher priced cars
Right.
here.
And you're right on the 401, so it's easy to just boost it and get on the 401 and book it to Montreal, as they say.
Yeah, not sure how far you'd get, but because of all
Well,
the traffic. But
I mean, I guess, if you're doing it, you do it early. If you're doing it late at night, midnight, 2 in the morning, yeah, you can make it, or you book it onto the 407. Yeah, you're on the cameras, but by the time anyone figures it out, that car's on a boat for wherever. So yeah, I'm floored. I'm just floored, like the police. Well, I guess what it comes down to is I'm kind of floored that police don't seem to have a handle on this. Like this is a story that's been going on for a while. It's not a new thing. Like
they've been, but I honestly think there might be, it is the problem that's too big for one police force.
right.
And, you've got like Halton they made the arrests around the 2nd of March. And this past weekend on the Saturday, they served a warrant on a property in the area of Trafalgar Road and Lower Base Line, which, yes, that's still in Milton. And they recovered 12 cars that had been stolen, 20 other plates that were linked to other cars around the GTA that have been stolen, plus still more cars that are at various points of being taken apart. So, there are like they are trying in this area.
Well, I guess that's the thing is that, but like, are they trying to? Do you know if they're trying to raise the flag at the RCMP level? Just because I clearly this isn't a Halton specific issue. I mean, if these cars are winding up on shipping containers to Montreal, to me that right there says this is an organized crime.
Yeah,
jumping provincial boundaries.
I'm not sure they're going that high, but I think they're trying to get the attention of CBSA.
Okay.
Because obviously that's an awful lot closer than the Port of Montreal. It's just,
I'm puzzled, but like it just strikes me as the RCMP, which is supposed to kind of govern that inter-provincial crime, right? Like the crime that jumps across borders. I don't know. I'm puzzled. I'm puzzled as, or if they're not the ones to do it. I could be wrong, but if they're not, then who would cover that interprovincial crime?
I don't know.
That's still like, I dare say at the very least it would be the OPP and maybe the Sûreté de Québec working to coordinate, because it has to be an end organization at Montreal. They're not just driving into Montreal saying, I hope I can get this car onto a shipping container and quietly board it onto a ship for, Dubai or China or wherever it's going to go. So there's got to be an organization at the end there. So that right there, you'd have to say there's an organized crime ring happening. And it's more than a 19-year-old kid with a criminal record in an Airbnb in Milton. That's a good story. I think I'm going to put that on my to-do list of people to follow up with on ask them to come in.
You looking to make the most out of this life and optimize your personal wellness? Then check out the Natural Man Podcast. Join me, host Mike C., as we explore all areas of human wellness, physical, mental, and emotional. Learn strategies to optimize your own well-being and be in the driver's seat of your own health. Remember, your doctor works for you. Learn biohacks, neurohacks, ways to improve sleep, and ways to optimize your body and your mind. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, the Fountain app, and at naturalmanpodcast.com.
But let's take a look at a second story. I wanted to talk. I love talking politics, so let's talk politics. The Hamilton by-election recently happened it's happening, I should say. But the early vote count, or the early vote numbers, came in, and it's only 5% of all eligible voters voted in the advanced polls in the Hamilton Central by-election, which I know by-elections are low. By-elections are low turnout affairs, but 5%, that's telling to me.
It's telling to me too, but in a province where we pretty much gave Doug Ford almost a blank mandate to do with whatever he wants, it's kind of, I could see a lot of voters feeling, well, what's the point, and then there's all this other, I think we're probably about to touch on this, so I'm hoping not to spoil, but on the anti-Semitic stuff that's flying around that race, that would turn me off too.
That's true.
Because if there's more, especially if there's more than, I haven't been following too closely, except for there's been a video of, I think it's the NDP candidate saying something, and that kind of fascinates me a little bit, because
we talked about it recently on the like the previous episode, and basically how the story goes is B'nai B'rith basically accused Sarah Jama of anti-Semitic, or I don't want to say anti-Semitic, but like they accused her of anti-Israel sentiment, basically because she attended a pro-Palestinian rally at some point. Brian Lilly caught wind of it. He wrote a whole op-ed, and basically that it culminated in a debate with the Liberal candidate, Deirdre Pike, and Jama, basically ultimately just going back and forth, one accusing the other of racism, the other accusing them of anti-Semitism. It was just a nasty turn event. I should clarify my report, my earlier statements, because I'm just looking up information here. Joey Coleman of the Public Record said that although 5% of registered voters have voted in the Hamilton Center by-election, apparently that is a record. Because apparently in February 2020, Ottawa, Vanier, and Orléans by-elections were 2.4% and 4.35% respectively. So apparently Hamilton Center really wants to cast votes, but it's not something that, again, it's not something that it's a big, these by-elections are never big turnout events, but I think it's a, I don't know I don't know what to make of it. I get the sense that people are possibly angry with Doug Ford, but they don't know where to park their protest vote.
I think that's a fair comment, because the Liberals, and it could also be that the provincial Liberals haven't really got their house in order yet with the leader and whatever new maybe new policy that's coming from them.
Well, that's the thing. I think people are angry with Doug Ford's government, his policies, his the direction, whatnot. Also, the other assumption I would say is Hamilton Center has always been NDP riding. Like I can't think of the last time. I can't think of the last Liberal member of provincial parliament from Hamilton Center. It's always been Hamilton Center as far as I can remember. So for them to say that's the sad thing, is like when these ridings become like a one-party security blanket, I guess, like that you just know that that one party is always going to win that seat. It does take it draws it. There's no competition for it, right? Nobody's expecting change in that riding.
No, well, maybe a part of it was Angie Harbaugh. That was her riding, right?
Yes.
Well, you had the party leader coming out of that riding for a number of years. And, when you've got something about a stronger voice, supposedly stronger voice at Queen's Park, and a party leader, that might have something to do with it as well. But as I'm going back to the whole issue, the whole anti-Semitism issue, people are just tired.
Yep.
Like, it's just going back to last year, last June, there was a provincial election. Last fall, the municipal election. This year, there's rumors of another federal election before the end of the year. And Toronto has a mayoral campaign going on, and now Hamilton has a by-election. So voters are exhausted. That might play a part in it as well.
I think so too. I think a bigger factor would be, I think the anti-Semitism in the campaign definitely draws. I don't think it's the make or break argument that some candidates think it is. And it's important to note, and it's important to confront, but it's not one of those things of when it's brought up in a campaign spontaneously. And I think the motivations behind it are somewhat suspect. It turns people off because people say that's like, it's not like we said in the episode. Both Sarah Jama, the NDP candidate, and Deirdre Pike, the Liberal candidate, they're both good people. Like I don't believe that either one of them are anti-Semitic or racist to their core. And so when you get into this, oh, but you said this on this date, and that must mean that you must mean this wholeheartedly. It turns people off because actions do speak louder than words. And I think people say, Yeah.
How many years ago was it that Miss Jama
It was, I don't know
made
the
those
exact year.
comments?
Well, the accusation was she was back in university, she was a member of a pro-Palestinian campus club. So, I mean, that's suspect in itself. But most recently, she attended a couple of years ago, like within 5 years, I'm going to say, she attended a pro-Palestinian rally in Hamilton. And so, but again, like
It's the problem is, I'm gonna lay something out here for you. I'm half Jewish. My father is Jewish. My mother was not. And so I maybe take the anti-Semitism stuff a little bit more seriously.
Okay. No, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm curious.
I also think in the context of that, and this is the reason why I asked what time, I also think that we need to rediscover the idea that views can change over time, and that let's say she made these comments years ago as part of, whatever, however she felt at that point in time,
Right.
and she has demonstrated since she has learned. I'm going to say she has learned more, has learned better. Then
I mean,
maybe we need to recognize that there's a bit of room here for evolution.
See, the question, and I don't want to. The question we had, Roll and I had the debate over was, would you actually qualify them as anti-Semitic remarks? Like she didn't. Her remarks were in the efforts of a pro-Palestinian. Like, she just didn't want Palestinian lives harmed. Is it did she have questions against Israel's policy in the Middle East? Yeah. Do you agree with her? Not. Fair enough. At no point did I hear any remarks such as Israel needs to be like wiped off the map, or anything like that would be conflated with anti-Semitism. Like, it's one of these things, like, we're really stretching here, and it's one of those things of, okay, is it
a case of questioning the Israeli state versus?
Well, it's not. That's not what she asked.
Kind of a thing.
That's not that. I didn't hear those remarks in the clips that I heard. That's not what I heard. Trying to find it now, since we're going into it. It's not we didn't hear anything about like a necessarily anti-Israel sentiment. It was more about a pro-Palestinian life or whatnot. Even still, the context of the clip it's a very murky clip that we're all relying on. So that's why I don't want to say, oh, it's very clear she meant this or that. At the same time, when I get a chance to kind of clarify the remarks, I don't think she did a great job, and she kind of muddied the waters by not really saying, no, I believe, Israel has a right to exist, but I support a two-state solution, which is generally what I think most Canadians envision in that part of the world. More importantly, I was asking, like, what's the point in the question we had was, what's the point in having the Liberal and the NDP candidates whose bona fides are in the social justice world picking a fight over something that, quite frankly, we thought was just it was a grenade thrown into the mix by by a right-wing conservative pundit, Brian Lilly, just to stir the pot, rather than, actual debate over the issues, which a lot of people are going to be. It's going to be a negative look on Doug Ford's record, as it should be, like from the whatnot. It was just, like, I don't want to defend either one's remarks, but at the end, I don't buy that Sarah Jama or Deirdre Pike are either one of them, based on their records and their actions, are anti-Semitic or racist at all. I found that, so that's why I found this whole debate in the media was a rather dishonest, or kind of it wasn't done with the best of intentions of getting to the truth. I should try to clarify.
It was a distractionary tactic.
Kind of, yeah. And it was meant to just stop people criticizing Doug Ford and drawing negative attention to his party's record. Because let's face it, three out of 4 candidates there are going to campaign on, hey, they've done a bad job. You need me to help stop them. But rather than have that debate, they decide, let's all go pile on each other and accuse each other of anti-Semitism and anti-Black racism and Lord knows what else. I just said that was it's not a good look if you're a progressive on that front. Yeah.
No, it's not a good look.
It's not. It's not. It's just one of those things of, like, in the end, what's going to change? Nothing's going to change. And I think
no, and I think I've even said this before on the podcast. This is what happens when we don't vote. He gets a massive. The person that maybe like you either dislike with all of the most polarizing person in Queen's Park gets a massive majority government.
It is. And it's
so,
well, you kind of have to give a damn, right? Yeah. Like this is the thing that matters. And you have to look past the slogans. And to kind of know when you're being played. That's the thing. Yeah.
The accountability factor is a big thing, because I don't know how many PC party MPPs, like, I know during the campaign I kept hearing that they weren't doing any debates. They hardly did any interviews. And I know that now I contacted my MPP's office for a statement about a story, and at some point was passed off to the Solicitor General's office.
Yeah.
And this is on a community, like, I get it was about a crime, it was about the car story, and I get it. You want to get your legal facts straight, but this is happening in your community. You mean to tell me that you don't have something to say about that?
Well, they should. And if they have something to say, they're welcome to come on the podcast and say it. We'll give them an ear, or give them a microphone, I should say. You know what? I think we're going to call it quits on this one. But thank you very much, Laura, for coming on and talking crime and politics. Always juicy topics on the 905er.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much. And we'll be back next week, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks for having me. That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns, or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.